I think the most embarrassing thing for him may be if they release his weight when he weighs in at the preliminaries on Thursday, because there's always a weigh-in, Donald, before there's a fight.
Yes, the Reverend Al Charlatan really doesn't understand the world we're living in, does he? That's why they pay him $1 million a year at NBC News to be a journalist. First he said if Donald Trump were black, he's on Morning Joke, with that clown car of dim-witted Democrats. Said if Donald Trump were black, he'd be Don King. I'm not sure if that was supposed to be an insult or flattery for Don King. Don King, who is still alive and well, by the way, the famous boxing promoter and a real character. He was always a real character and went to prison for manslaughter, of course, beat a guy to death in a bar or something like that. And I met Don King one time while waiting for cars at the valet stand at the Beverly Wilshire Hotel in Beverly Hills, California, no less. And it was taking a while. It was busy. And standing next to me, I looked next to me, there's Don King with his crown, his hair standing on end and stuff. And I was a huge fight fan growing up. And Don King was, he was Don King. And he was standing there, so I said hello, and he immediately turned and started talking and telling stories and big smile. And I told him stories, and we told a couple of jokes, had some laughs, and it was kind of fun meeting Don King. I also just looked up Peter Arnett, the Associated Press reporter during the Vietnam War, who gave us the oft misquoted, that you had to destroy the village in order to save it, just as the Democrats now had to destroy the planet in order to save it. Amazing stuff. And Peter Arnett, alive and well at the age of 88. He's still out there. New Zealander, he is, a New Zealander. Yes, sir. So we got all that going for us. And I need to get to it because I sometimes fail to get to it. But there's another, and that's the mailbag. It's time for the mailbag. The mailbag, because you are beloved listeners, great Americans, and new Americans, too, from people from all over the place, great Americans. But there's another story, a couple of stories I have to get to the Washington Post today. 2018 Maui fires. They had the fires back there in 2018, and it's kind of like what we saw a couple of weeks ago. 2018 Maui fires yielded promises, but little action. Turns out the same thing happened with no sirens and no water in the fire hydrants. And in 2018, they promised they were going to fix it all, and they didn't. But that's okay. You know why? Why is that okay, Michael? Because they're Democrats. That's the correct answer. That's the thing. That's your Democrat. So I want to get to that. Also a piece in the Washington Post today, kind of shocking, that, hey, maybe the Bidens should be investigated because they don't pay attention. One of the things I point out about the news media and the Democrats, but I repeat myself, is they don't follow the news. This is true. I find them all the time. Jake Tapper at CNN and the people at the Washington Post. They, years later, after we're having these discussions for years, and then they act like they slap themselves in the forehead with the heel of their hand and say, what? What's this? There was no Russian collusion? What's this? It really is Hunter Biden's laptop? Well, what's this? Devin Archer said that big guy really is Joe Biden, and he gets a 10% cut from the Chinese communist business that Hunter Biden drummed up when he was over there on Air Force Two with the vice president, and they lied to us about not taking any business meetings because they don't follow the news. They're supposed to be professional newsmen. They make seven figures as newsmen and women, and sometimes in between. And they don't follow the news. They don't know. You could give them a news quiz, and they'd all fail. It's kind of amazing. All right, let's get to the mailbag. Because it's time for the mailbag. We should have mailbag music, shouldn't we? Not just me singing, as great as my singing is, but maybe not. Let's go to that's the mailbag, and Kevin Tober pulled together our questions. Our social media director and czar. We should call him the social media czar. That's a big thing in Washington. Czar, you're a czar of this. You know, Kamala Harris is not even a czarina. She's a czar. A czar is a man. And a czarina is a woman. No, czar is king. It's Russian. But never mind that. She's our border czar, doing a heck of a job, too. Heck of a job, Ronnie. That's the thing. All right, so all raw sent in a question. Does your best girl listen to your shows daily? That's kind of a fun question. Also, personal question. Well, the first one's kind of personal, I'd say. But that's it. Let me answer the first part first. Does your best girl listen to the shows daily? Amazingly, she does. She does. When she's at home, my best girl has a career of her own, and especially since the Wuhan came along and stuff, a lot of people working more from home. But my best girl, and sometimes I'm surprised, but she listens to a great deal of my humble radio broadcast. She listens from home. She listens when she's in the car. Now, much of the time she's working, busy working, and can't listen to everything, but like many people. But she does listen to great swaths, a huge percentage of my show on a daily basis. And that makes me very happy. And she occasionally, shares her thoughts. And if something is funny, she thinks everything is funny. But if she thinks something is funny, she shares her thoughts and her opinions with me. And I value that very, very much. My best girl worked at CNN for 10 years. And that's where we met. She was at CNN in Atlanta as a national assignment editor. And I was in Washington as a Washington assignment editor, and then a producer and beat producer and reporter and various things. But so she has a news background too. And we talk about it, and it's great. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. And then All Raw asked also, personal question, anyone in your immediate family a lefty? And if so, are you on speaking terms? I always bite my tongue. It's really starting to hurt, says All Raw. Biting your tongue does hurt. It happens. I talk a lot, so it happens to me sometimes. Does hurt. But the question is, anyone in your immediate family a lefty? And if so, are you on speaking terms? Here's the great thing. I grew up with 5 brothers. Our oldest brother died a number of years ago. So there are 5 of us brothers remaining, and nobody's a lefty. None of my brothers are lefties. Brothers' wives, that would be sisters-in-law. No lefties. No lefties. Now, one of my brothers has an ex-wife who is, it's kind of interesting. She's, let's say, a political free spirit. And she thinks that she's very liberal and open-minded. She's kind of so lefty that she's almost scary sometimes. And we agree on almost everything because she goes so far left that she's right again or something like that. And also, here's another thing. Are you on speaking terms? Family and old friends and old associates from CNN stuff. I'm fine with people who are Democrat voters if they're friends and family. I don't jam my politics down their throats, big turn of phrase these days. I really don't. And I don't go around picking political fights with people, right? I'm not in their faces about it. So as long as you're not in my face about your politics, I'm fine with that. I really am. I've got friends that are Biden voters that we go to dinner with and we hang out with and we drink beer with at sports bars and stuff. And if it's not an issue, it's not an issue. I don't make an issue of politics. I don't harass them. Usually it's because they're not very well informed. And if they'd like to be more well informed, they can ask me. And I will politely share with them the information that they are lacking. See, isn't that polite? But honestly, but lefty, I mean, that's different. The question is lefty. If you're a lefty, that's probably going to be a problem. If you're a Democrat voter and you're not crazy, and this is really my yardstick that I've always used, I don't care if you're, self-described as a liberal or a Democrat or whatever, as long as you're not crazy. If you're not crazy, we can probably get along just fine, right? And talk about issues. Because not so long ago, cats and dogs lived together in peace in Washington, D.C. and beyond. I would meet up with people when I was a news guy, CNN, working close to Capitol Hill and spending a lot of time on Capitol Hill for a number of years and just doing news. And you go out after work and you go to Bull Feathers, a bar on Capitol Hill, and you drink with Democrats and Republicans and you talk about the issues, and it's no big deal. And I never changed. I never changed. I'm not looking to get into political. I come and I do this every day for 3 hours. It's great therapy, of course. And I'm a man of peace. I don't go around picking political fights with people. I know you hear some people on talk radio talk about how they're constantly getting in screaming matches with people. I don't do that. I just don't. And my family is my family. And that comes first with me. Now, if somebody's yelling at me and getting in my face, I'm probably going to sit there and smirk for a little while, and then I might just have one line that devastates them, and then I'm done. You know, that sounded a little, but that's okay because that's usually what happens. But I get along with everybody. I've always gotten along with everybody. There are some people who don't get along with me, but that's not my fault. Oh, you get along with somebody who doesn't get along with you. Well, I just don't care. Not about them. If they don't want to be agreeable and sensible and well-informed, I do what I can, but then I move on. T-Bone with a question says, hey, Chris, how much do you believe the odds have changed percentage-wise in the possibility that maybe Trump could win Hawaii's popular vote in 2024? Since Biden's recent debacle in Maui, I don't recall the last time a Republican presidential candidate won Hawaii. That's a fun question because they've, Joe Biden and the Democrats. But I got to tell you, most of the botch is on the local Democrats in Maui and the state of Hawaii. Liberal Democrats everywhere you look, local, statewide. And they, for the most part, are the ones that botched everything. Now, Joe Biden, obviously, once he had a role to play, he botched the heck out of his role, too. And the news media spins it for him. He's not a Republican. He's not Trump. So he could go there and start another fire and burn down the other half of the island. And they'd say that, this is a great opportunity. The Washington Post would say this is a great opportunity to build a new Hawaii, Now, what do I think? We looked it up, T-Bone. Biden won Hawaii in 2020 with 63.7% of the vote. And Trump got 34.3% of the vote, which is surprising to me that he got that much of the vote in Hawaii. But Biden was 63.7% of the vote last time around. I got to say, a swing that big, the likelihood, the odds, percentage-wise, pretty slim. And Maui is one of the islands in the chain, and the town Lahaina that was destroyed. There are other fires on the island and in Hawaii this year too. But I think the odds are very slim that a Republican, President Trump or anyone else will win Hawaii. But you can't rule it out entirely, especially if Joe Biden is still the candidate next year. And I don't believe he will be. But if Joe Biden is the candidate, honestly, that's just an IQ test as a voter. If you vote for Joe Biden next year, you will have failed that IQ test. But in Hawaii, a consistently, steadily liberal Democrat island with the demonization of President Trump and all Republicans, MAGA terrorists and all this stuff. The propaganda apparatus of the Democrat Party has so smeared the Republicans, it's going to be a tough one. But it'd be fun to watch. Devil Dog 0231, has anyone looked into whether Biden has new aliases he's using as President of the United States, or is he still using the old ones? That is a great question, and the answer is I'm not aware of anybody having looked into that because we don't have a legitimate news media in Washington. But what was he? Robert L. Peters, and then he had 3 different aliases, emails. And the Washington Post doesn't care, and the New York Times doesn't care. And there was J.R.B. Ware, like beware. Yeah, we should beware. And 3 different aliases. Anybody looking into that? Devil Dog? No, nobody in the news media is looking into that. Whether he's got new ones. They don't report the news. They cover things up for Democrats and they attack Republicans. And then from the Chris Plant Show newsletter submissions box, Linda from Glover Park, that's a neighborhood in Washington, D.C. Chris, Hunter's daughter and her new hubby have gone from a White House wedding straight to occupying a room. It's true, they're living in the White House. They're both attorneys. Why can't they find their own apartment? They actually complained that Washington was too expensive. They did. and they're living in the White House. And I got to say, if my grandfather were the president of the United States and I were a young woman, I were a young man, and it's like, hey, you can live here in the White House if you want. I know they got married at the White House, and they say, hey, we got a room for you upstairs. It's probably where, what's her name, Michelle Obama's mother lived for all those years, for 8 years, which is a cool story that was largely ignored. I think they'll live there for as long as they can. Why don't they get an apartment? They're living in the White House. Are you going to move into an apartment? I don't know, honey. We can get this 2-bedroom apartment on 16th Street, or we can live in the White House. I think they're going to choose to live in the White House. That's what I think. It's good to be a Democrat. I've got one more mailbag question coming up. But first, breaking news, President Joe Biden's plan to introduce a digital dollar is already underway. And it's vital to understand the potential consequences here because, they're telling us one thing, but another thing is true. This initiative is definitely not in our best interest, and time is of the essence. So taking action now is a really great idea to protect your savings, your future, your retirement. You can help protect your savings from the risks of the digital dollar by diversifying with IRAs in gold and silver. You get started by calling the experts and our friends of the Chris Plant Show at American Alternative Assets. Call them today at 888-4GOLD-20. That's 888-446-5360. They'll give you all the guidance you need on safeguarding your retirement savings. Say no to Joe Biden's digital dollar. Call 888-4GOLD-20. That's 888-446-5360. Call them today. Get smart. Individual results may vary. There is no guarantee that past performance of gold and silver will be indicative of future results. Seek your own legal, tax, investment, and financial advice before opening an account. Yeah, I'd live in the White House. Apartments are expensive. They are both attorneys. But, it takes a while to get really crooked and make lots of money in Washington. Of course, their grandfather is Joe Biden, so I'm sure it'll work out for him. Hey, it's Chris Plant, excited to tell you about our July 2024 Listener Sea Cruise. We'll be sailing around the British Isles, visiting Scotland and Ireland. Please join us. Book by this July 31st for extra savings. Visit ChrisPlantCruise.com. Yeah, Linda in Glover Park. Joe Biden's granddaughter, Hunter Biden's daughter, from one marriage or another, not clear who, married her boyfriend, fiance, both lawyers. They've been living in the White House. I think it's a great story that Michelle Obama's mother, Marion Robinson, lived in the White House for 8 years. There are many rooms in the White House. Lived in the White House for 8 years, minded her own business. What an amazing life story she is. Born in Chicago in 1937, her complaining big-armed daughter marries this weirdo who becomes president. She lives in the White House for 8 years. I never have enough time. Every day I don't have enough time. I've got some Rudy Giuliani I want to share with you. He's headed down from New York City to Atlanta, Georgia, where he's been charged with all kinds of terrible crimes by a gang of radical left-wing extremists, criminals, who are, because they're leftists, they try to put their political enemies in jail, because that's what the left does all over the world, like Vlad Putin did a few weeks ago to one of his rivals, put him in prison for 19 years. And we got lots of LGBTQ Democrats because they're all nuts. But I do have one more question from the mailbag, assembled by Kevin. Don in Herndon, Virginia asks, why did CNN go off the deep end since the days that you worked there? What caused them to go from a news network to a Democrat propaganda arm? That is a great question. And there's a long answer, and then there is a kind of a short answer. Ted Turner really ran the place by himself for a long, long time, and he's an eccentric billionaire, and I always got a kick out of Ted Turner from the time I saw him winning the America's Cup and, being knee-walking drunk on Jack Daniels by the time his sailboat got in. they had champagne for him, and he was drinking Jack Daniels out of the bottle. And I thought, that guy's a hoot. That was before I even worked there. Then I went to work there. I was there 17 years, did all kinds of great stuff, had fun, did real news, did good journalism. And Ted Turner sold to these people at AOL. Remember them? And they had billions of dollars, and they said, let's buy something real. And I was like, no, Ted, don't do it. That's fake money. That's phony money. And they're going to, but they're a bunch of New Yorkers and new money people that didn't know. Of course, Ted was new money too. Then Time Warner came in. Right? But Ted Turner, and they are, New York left-wing people, and they drove Ted Turner out, and I predicted that too as a big mistake. But I was there when they brought in a new CNN president, and I'm going to name names. A guy named Rick Kaplan from ABC News. Now, Rick Kaplan had won like 45 Emmy Awards. He was the executive producer of Nightline when Ted Koppel was there, and it was real news. Day 444, dun, 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 dun. And Rick Kaplan was supposed to be like the biggest newsman in the country. In fact, he's 6'10", Rick Kaplan. And the story goes, and I believe it to be true, Rick Kaplan was invited down to Atlanta, Georgia to meet with Ted Turner, and Ted was inviting him to become president of CNN. And Rick Kaplan, 6'10", is sitting out in the lobby outside Ted's office, and Ted came out to greet him. And when Rick Kaplan stood up, first time they ever met, Rick Kaplan stood up, and Ted Turner said, "Damn, you're the biggest Jew I ever saw." Said, "Damn, you're the biggest Jew I ever saw." Ted Turner, he just, he was rich. He could say whatever he thought. And that's what he thought. And he made the mistake, and I know Rick Kaplan, but Rick Kaplan is not a good newsman, notwithstanding his time at Nightline and 40-something Emmys. And he's not a good person. He's a mean person. He's a terrible person. Let me just say that Rick Kaplan, 6'10", former president of CNN, and he really wrecked the place. He came in and started putting terrible people from ABC News in important positions at CNN. And then it becomes an organic thing, and they bring in their friends from ABC, and they're all lefties, and they're all egomaniacs, and they're all terrible news people. They're not good journalists. But I blame Ted Turner selling out to AOL and then Time Warner, and hiring Rick Kaplan. That was a big mistake by Ted Turner. And Rick Kaplan, hey, here he comes through the door now. He just kind of wrecked the place because he brought ABC journalism to CNN. We were a nuts and bolts organization, and then we weren't. That was really, I think, that for me, other CNN people might have slightly different tale to tell, but I would hang on. I think that was really the death blow when Rick Kaplan came to CNN, and in my estimation, destroyed the journalism there and put all kinds of terrible non-news people, mostly from ABC, in those positions. So that's my answer to that. And and I had to leave because when people would ask me what I do for a living, and I would make up things. I couldn't say I worked for CNN anymore. I couldn't say I was a journalist anymore because they had murdered journalism and they had murdered CNN, and that's when I decided to go sell arms in Africa. So that's the complete answer to that. Now, let's see. Let's go to so many crazy stories that the Democrats are giving me every day, of course, completely nuts. I want to get to Rudy Giuliani. And, the Republican debate is tonight. We talked about that a bit. And the President Trump interview with Tucker Carlson is tonight. That's going to be the big winner tonight, obviously. The news media just wants to have sound bites of Chris Christie. I just had images of the windmills and the whales of Chris Christie bashing Donald Trump, and they'll use those sound bites, and then their public confidence in them will go down again if that's possible. Here's a story from the Daily Wire. Charlotte, you see, the city of Charlotte. This is an amazing story, I've got to say, in North Carolina. Charlotte Pride. That means gay pride. They just get rid of gay and just say pride, and now we're all supposed to know what it is. I'm America Pride. America Pride. But Charlotte Pride, gay organization, says no one will win the 2023 Harvey Milk Award. Harvey Milk was a San Francisco city councilman who also took in an underage homeless boy as a sexual plaything and then was murdered by another Democrat San Francisco City Council member, Dan White, who also, by the way, murdered the mayor, Moscone, and that's who he went there to murder. And then as an afterthought, he murdered Harvey Milk. They're all Democrats, and never mind. And now they give out the Harvey Milk Award because he was murdered by another Democrat, but not a Moscone Award. Isn't that interesting? Charlotte Pride says no one will win 2023 Harvey Milk Award after convicted pedophile winner. They gave the award to a convicted pedophile and then found out about it, which is appropriate since Harvey Milk was also a pedophile. But that's okay. That's, when you're a Democrat, all of this comes out in the wash. Kind of an amazing thing. The Daily Wire, Chad Severance Turner. He's got a hyphenated last name, which is not normal for men in America. Served years in prison for sexually abusing a minor boy. Charlotte Pride, the North Carolina gay pride group in Charlotte, now says no one will be awarded the 2023 Harvey Milk Award for exceptional LGBTQ plus advocacy after the announced winners passed as a convicted child sex offender came to light. Well, I guess that seems appropriate then. Does that mean nobody gets the award? What about me? What about me? We do not give every single award out every year, they fibbed. Charlotte Pride was originally going to do Harvey Milk. They were going to do Harvey Milk, but upon further discussion, decided not to give out that award this year. The leading Charlotte, North Carolina LGBTQ organization told news outlet WSOC on Friday. That's a pretty amazing story. So they're not giving out the award because they found out that he's a convicted child molester, a little boy, sex acts, went to prison, sentenced to 10 years in prison, did 2 years, was then paroled, accused by 3 minor boys of sexual abuse in 1998 when he was 20, all 3 of whom he met through his position as music director at New Harvest Church of God in Gaffney, South Carolina. You see, there you go. The 3 boys' accusations were tried in 3 separate cases. 14-year-old boy got all this stuff going on. And then he went to prison, and leave out the stuff about fondling genitals and all that. Then the second 15-year-old boy, then 10 years in prison and paroled after 2 years. Maybe it wouldn't be appropriate to give him the award then. Is that what you're saying? I think that's what they're saying. Pretty amazing stuff. Jackie Rosen praised an LGBT group that teaches children about witchcraft and masturbation. Sure, but that's okay, I think, isn't it? Because Democrats, they got the after-school Satan clubs all across the country because Democrats. But the Free Beacon has the story and the Washington Post doesn't. Jackie Rosen praised an LGBT group that teaches children about witchcraft and masturbation in Nevada. Our Center Reno is home to Nevada Democratic Socialist of America chapter. You see, it's the DSA, Democratic Socialist America. When Senator Jackie Rosen, Democrat, Nevada, visited Our Center Reno, that's the name of the place, Our Center Reno, last month, she thanked its staff and touted the local resources the group provides to area children. It's always the children. They're coming for your children. These resources include a, quote, queer pagan exploration club. That's what it's called. And trans discovery group for 11-year-olds. And a sex education curriculum so controversial that a nonpartisan Nevada school board banned it over 4 years ago. But the Democrat, you see, self-described LGBTQIA plus community center, that's a lot of letters, very redundant too. Also in the meeting, ground for far-left organizations such as the Northern Nevada Democratic Socialists of America. But the Democrat state senator here, she's pushing these programs for the kids. It's always the kids. It's always Satan. It's always the devil. It's always witchcraft. It's always gender transition. And, of course, masturbation, because now Democrats think you have to teach children how to masturbate because they're very unwell. Very unwell indeed. Boy, are they unwell. All right. And let's get to, we've got another one here. Where's the other? Because I know we got this other crazy thing, the librarian. These people, your Democrat Party, I'm telling you. Here's the story from Fox News. Marxist lesbian library group president announces, quote, angry white mob parents, end quote, in push for queerness. Self-described Marxist lesbian decries angry white mob parents because the angry white mob parents don't want to allow her to push the Marxist lesbian agenda on their children in their library. But, you know, your Democrats, this is Emily Drabinski, a controversial president of the American Library Association. Sure. Previously expressed that she wants to recenter children's libraries on notions of queerness. She wants all libraries. She's the president of the American Library Association. She self-describes as a lesbian Marxist, a Marxist lesbian, and she wants all American libraries, as the president of the American Library Association, to focus all children's libraries on, quote, notions of queerness, end quote. Sure. Yeah. And prevent what she describes as, quote, angry white mob parents, end quote, from trying to block their efforts to insert notions of queerness into all children's libraries everywhere. That's your Democrat Party. Vote accordingly. Let's go to Rudy Giuliani, because the Rudester stopped to speak to cameras before he's in New York City this morning, before heading down to Georgia, where he has to turn himself in as a criminal because Democrats are the left and they jail their political enemies just like Vladimir Putin.
Well, I'm going to Georgia, and I'm feeling very, very good about it because I feel like I'm defending the rights of all Americans, as I did so many times as a United States attorney. People like to say I'm different. I'm the same Rudy Giuliani that took down the mafia, that made New York City the safest city in America, reduced crime more than any mayor in the history of any city, anywhere. And I'm fighting for justice. I have been from the first moment. I represented Donald Trump, an innocent man who has now been proven innocent several times. I don't know how many times he has to be proven innocent, and they have to be proven to be liars, actually enemies of our republic, who are destroying rights, sacred rights.
Sacred rights, American rights, constitutional rights, Western civilization is literally at stake here, Rudy Giuliani.
They're destroying my right to counsel, my right to be a lawyer. They're destroying his right to counsel. It's not accidental that they've indicted all his lawyers. Never heard of that before. In America, all the lawyers indicted.
All the lawyers indicted. That's an extremist, radical leftist in Atlanta, Georgia, who is waging political warfare. They call it lawfare now. Rudy Giuliani.
Now, whether you dislike or you like Donald Trump, let me give you a warning. They're going to come for you. When the political winds shift, as they always do, let us pray that Republicans are more honest, more trustworthy, and more American than these people in charge of this government. Because if our government is conducted this way, and the system of justice is politicized and criminalized for politics, your rights are in jeopardy and your children's.
Yeah, honestly, first they came for the Trump supporters, and I did not speak.
I don't know if I plead today, but if I do, I plead not guilty. And I get photographed. Isn't that nice? A mugshot for the man who probably put the worst criminals of the 20th century in jail. You find a prosecutor who has a better record of mine in the last 100 years. I bet you don't. Or a mayor. And they're going to degrade themselves by doing a mugshot of me. Like people will recognize me.
They're not liberals, they're the left. They're not liberals, they're the left. They are not liberals, they are the left. And they are here to destroy. As Americans, we must stand up and speak. First, they came for the Trump supporters, and I did not speak. So President Trump is doing his interview with Tucker Carlson tonight. to, as they're all saying, counter-program the Fox News Republican debate. And I'm sure that the President Trump Tucker Carlson event is going to be gigantic, and that by comparison, I think the Fox News debate is going to be perhaps the least watched. And I've just made reference a couple of times to a German Lutheran pastor in a poem that he wrote after World War II. Martin Niemöller is the name of the pastor, and it's kind of a Holocaust thing. Now, I've been saying for years the left is coming for your rights, and they're not liberals, they're the left. I say those things because they're true, and they are a warning because our rights are very much under assault. And President Trump and Rudy Giuliani and the rest, they're all part of that. But the pastor after World War II in Germany, Lutheran pastor, wrote, "First they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me." And I don't care if you like Trump or not, if you're an American, you've got to recognize what's going on here because it's dangerous. Dangerous, I say. That's what I'm telling you. The left is here. They're not liberals. It's a completely different ball of wax. Womp, womp, womp. Now, the Marxist lesbians are coming for your children in the libraries. And the Washington Post finally admitted today, not going to get to it, in Wuhan, doctors knew the truth. They were told to keep quiet. And the editorial board has this piece. It's not actually in the hard copy of the paper. It's only online. And they're admitting that they lied to us, the Chinese communists lied to us about the Wuhan Red Death out of the Wuhan Institute of Virology. But it's such a clown car at the Washington Post, they don't even deserve to have the story read. They're slowly catching up to where we have all been for many years. Many years. Crazy stuff, I'm telling you. Rudy Giuliani heading down to Georgia today to check in and be mugshotted and fingerprinted. Former U.S. Attorney, Mayor of New York, one of the great political figures of the 20th century. And the left is here for him. They're coming for Rudy Giuliani. And I did speak. They're coming for Donald Trump. And I did speak. And they're allowing cameras in the courtroom in Georgia, according to the latest reports. That's good.